So thank you for joining. My name is Sammy Trujillo, and I'll be going through the Beas Manufacturing in the industrial machinery and components industry. I will go through the pages and I will show you what I need to show you. At the end, I will open the mic, so if you have any specific questions, just please ask me or write them down, okay? So I will leave time at the end that we can have a little discussion if you're up to it. But for now, I'll just go through the paces. Okay, so I won't stop into everyone, but things are changing. The market forces are driving this type of industry in different ways, and we're trying to cope and catch up to what these new trends are bringing us to. For example, it's more sharing, it's more Internet of Things, it's more outsourcing as an integral part of the manufacturing process, and I'll talk about that going forward. Okay, experts are saying that Internet of Things will be one of the most important factors in this type of industry. And here are some other specific things that are being said regarding this type of industry. Now, this industry, I mean, it is manufacturing, it's everything, but it has its own special things that make it a bit different from others. For example, one of the basic or the greatest things here are that the bombs are very complex, they are very large, and they are very configurable. Okay? When you're talking about a machine or making a machine dedicated or according to the customer's requirements, it can be a quite complex thing, and we'll see how that comes to being. Okay, so we'll see the configurator, how that affects the quoting, and then how we manage large bombs in the system. Another thing is the subcontracting. Because of the processes that are very large, most of the industrial machinery companies rely quite a bit on outside subcontractors to be able to do part of the job they're required to do. And we in Beas have the ability or have the tools to make that happen. And again, because we have many big bills of material, large bill of materials, there's a lot of processes involved, and we're trying to get all these processes together to a point in which is manageable, both from a material point of view, which would be MRP basically, and also the resource management point of view, which will be the APS, or Advanced Planning Scheduling, which we will see both things going forward. And obviously the ability to have that data in the system and run the KPIs or run reports that will bring us to bring all that information so we can make decisions. Now, basically, what you see here in gray is what SAP brings to the table. What you see here in orange are the additions that Beas Manufacturing brings to SAP Business One, which is MRP2, and we will see that. It's not just a regular MRP, manufacturing management, capacity planning, product costing, and I'm talking about a very granular product costing, especially when you have large bills of material, quality control, traceability, and advanced functionality like PDC, data collection from the shop floor, APS, product configurator, which we will see, and so on. And these are the things that are specific for this type of industry. We have multiple customers in the industrial machinery area. Here are some examples, some things they are saying. That Beas Manufacturing provided standard master data and production. It's fully integrated in the business, accurate real-time information, and some other customers also. All right, so we spoke about dashboards. Here's an example of the dashboards that we can use. This is using the Boyum dashboards, but we can use the HANA dashboards. We created a few examples. If ever you need, just let me know. And we also have released some in the latest version of B1 usability package. We have released specific dashboards for Beas or for Beas information, which you'll be able to see when you install that. So let's get going here. And I will do everything following one example. Okay, so I have a sales order here for an item called mold for injection. Okay, this is a configurable item. In the background, just so we get an idea what we are talking about, we're talking about a very large bill of materials here with multiple items and multiple processes. And some of them, you can see these little flags here that says F, means that there is a configurator running here in the background deciding how this bill of materials will eventually look like. So within the sales order, I am able to run a configurator. The configurator, imagine there's a list of feature and options here, okay? So the same machine, the same machine that I want to build, the customer has specific requirements that make that machine not being exactly the same as before, okay? So maybe you need some different heights and different width, different material to be used, could be steel, could be aluminum. It's still the same machine, okay? But we can actually modify this according to what is required. If you need a regular screw, a large screw, okay? How many cavities do you need for the mold? In this case, it's a mold, but how many cavities? One cavity, two cavities. Each one of these options here has two main things. First of all, it allows me to not create multiple items in the system, but rather configure them every time that the customer has a requirement. And number two, it also obviously affects the price. Like in this case, just as an example, okay, the steel will cost 7,000 euros, whereas the aluminum will cost 2,000. Okay, so it also affects the price and not just the cost, the price that I am charging my customer. After all is said and done, I have a price to charge my customer here after I made all the necessary selections. And on top of that, the system created a bill of materials that is connected specifically to this sales order. So from here onwards, when I release a work order, when I run MRP, when I do anything, the system will no longer look at the bill of materials, the standard one that is set up in the system, but rather the one that is connected to this specific sales order. And the bill of materials, as we saw before, it's quite extensive. It has multiple levels, it has multiple items, multiple operations. So you have a full visibility, but it does one more thing here. It tells me here how much this is going to cost me. And this is by cost. And it's telling me that my material cost will be 6,000 euros. My labor cost, forgive me, this is just an example, will be 264,000 euros, which is a bit ridiculous, but still, okay? And not just that, but I also have some additional costs here, some additional overhead costs that can also be taken into consideration. And here I can do one more thing. If whatever is not covered by the configurator, I can still come here to the BOM that was created and make any changes that I need. Okay, for example, if instead of this pipe, instead of 18, I need 19 meters, I can still do this, and this will be what will be driving the whole thing forward. So I can take out items, add items, remove everything. So I've done two things. By running this, I created a BOM that is connected to the sales order, and I have a full visibility of the costs that are attached to this BOM. So I know how much it's going to cost me, so I can price my customer properly just by having this type of visibility. I won't save it, okay? That is one thing. One other thing that I want to show you here, and two more things before we continue actually. So what you see here is a bill of materials that is very, very clear. You know what it needs, even if it's a configuration. Even if it's a configuration, it's still extremely clear. But what happens? What happens when you have materials that could be built in multiple ways? For example, let's take this mold bottom plate revision 2. Okay, there are two ways of doing it, and they're both released. I can do it this way or this other way. In Sub-Business 1 or in Beas, we have the ability to create multiple bill of materials or multiple versions of the same item, but only one of those versions is the one that's relevant. So I have two versions here. So version 2 is the one that is going to be used for MRP and everything. But when I release a sales order, work order, sorry, I will be able to select which of these two revisions, because these are both released, I'm going to use for production. So this is another way that we can manage multiple BOMs in a less configurable manner, but a more version controlled environment. The last thing I want to show you here is, okay, so the customer asks for a quote, and well, this is a sales order, but it could have easily been a quotation. The same functionality is available there. So when the customer asks for a quotation, one of the first things the engineers do, they go to the PLM system, whether it's a Windchill or I don't know, whichever system it is that they use, okay? And they create a drawing and they make all that information so that they can see exactly what is required. So if they've already invested all that time doing that, I mean, it would be very sad that they have to go back to SAP and set up all the items again and set up all the bill of materials that they've already created. So what we have here is the data integration hub, which allows us to bring information from product development management, PDM systems, okay? So I have an example here. This is an example from SolidWorks, okay, in which I get a file that looks like this. It's an XML file. I create some sort of mapping between the XML tags and whatever is required in the system. And you can see that the system actually brings an item in based on that information. And not just the item, but also the bill of materials. The same way we could bring the bill of materials in. This is the parent item, the child, the quantity, and the connection. So information that is being updated and maintained in PDM systems can be brought into the system, into Beas, which will save a whole lot of time doing this. Take this into consideration that this can be done. One of the nicest things here is once you have this ready, you don't have to run it manually. We can set up the system in a way that if ever you put a file in a given directory, the system will check that directory on a regular basis every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every hour, as much as you've sent it to be, and it will pick up this information and update it. All right. So now that we have the sales order, now that we have this sales order that I released, and I released a few more, the next thing I need to do, I remember that the BOM is very, very large. I need to make sure that I have all the required materials for that to be able to do that. And for that, we have the MRP, and I already ran it before. And MRP does something very, very simple. MRP tells me, based on what you need, I will tell what you need to provide, what you need to sell, what you need to produce. I will tell you what you need to buy or you need to allocate. So it looks at the demand, which is sales orders, minimum inventory, work orders, everything that requires stock, and I will tell you what you need. So just by looking at this, what I have here on top is my shopping list. Okay, what is a shopping list? Very simple. Okay, it's like opening a little bit like opening the refrigerator. Okay, so I open this and I see large screws. How many do I have? 330. How many do I need? 505. So very simple math. 505 minus 330 is 175. Okay, that's fine. All is good. Two questions here. Why do I need 505? And then you will see that every time I step on a line here, the bottom screen changes. Brings me some additional information. So in this case, it will tell me what this number is made out of. You need 505 because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 work orders here. Okay, and these are the dates that are required for these work orders. These are the quantities that you need for each and every one of these work orders. And therefore the balance right now, you need 120 for the first work order. You already have 313 stock. So you're fine, okay? You still live with a balance, okay? Then you need 210, that clears out the balance. So going forward, you're going to need more. And this is the second question. It's not only how much do you need, but when you need it. Since I only have a 5-day lead time here, okay, and I need this by the end of the month, there is no reason for me, if I need it on the 25th, to order it today, which we're on the 4th, I think. There is absolutely no need for that. Why should I do that? I could actually wait until the 20th of the month in order to order them. And that's where we get here in the middle. Okay, we get here, not only that I need 175, but it's also telling me when I should order them based on the lead time. I broke this by calendar week, CW's calendar week, but it can be done by month, by day. It's a setting that you put in Beas when you're setting up the MRP. So it is important to know that that MRP, what it does is it tells you how much you need and also when you need to order it. From here, directly, we can create either purchase requisitions, and I don't know how familiar you are with Beas, but starting the version that's going to be released now, the system will create SAP Business One purchase requisitions and also work orders, proposals. All right, so we get a full picture here. Now, I only have 13 or 14 items here, but imagine if you have a huge BOM. I mean, it really concentrates all that information and just tells you what you have to do with it and consolidates everything so you won't miss anything directly from here. We spoke about MRP2. MRP2 says, okay, listen, so your demand was all these sales orders. And for that, you have to release work orders, which is fine, okay? So what happens if you decide to actually go and produce everything that the work order asks you to do? Using MRP2, this is not by any means a planning tool, but it will give you an idea of where you stand. So if my MRP plan goes as I schedule, as I decided, then this specific resource, which is called cutting machine number 1, on this day, on this month, will have a 50% utilization, then nothing. Then in July, it will have a I don't know, 8% utilization, I think it is. So you can see here how, if you decide to go for MRP, how it would affect. For example, we see a bad situation here that in this month, I'm over 100%. So I know I will have a problem here, and I can see it by week. So this week, I need most of the labor this week, and I won't be able to do it. But I see that going forward until the week number 18, I'm really full. So some way we have to take care of this, and I'll show you how we will do that. Again, this is just a thumb rule, just to let you know that this specific resource might have a problem at a given point in time, okay? It doesn't mean that there is a problem. It means that you might have a problem. You probably will if you release all the work orders, but still. And that's the idea of MRP2, that not only looks at the material, but it also lets you know how your resources are going to be affected. And by the way, if you want to know what is causing this, should give me, there we go. Just a double click just gives me all the work orders that are causing that. So now that I run MRP and I did my purchases and I have everything in place, I can go and create work orders. Now, work orders here, because at least in the environment I set up, it's a make to order environment. So we triggers work orders based sales orders. And we have a specific program for that. It's called sales orders to production order, in which you get all the sales orders that you have in the system that you still have to release a work order for. I've already released mine. Okay, all you have to do is just put a quantity here and click create work order. Basically, that's it. Okay, and you can invoke the screen from the menu or from here. If you call a call up, from here it will bring you the same screen. Okay, so I already created some work orders here in the system based on the sales orders, and we can see that these work orders here are warehouse that make to stock, but these ones are make to order because I have an order number and I have a customer and I have all that information. One more thing, in Beas, remember that the BOM was quite extensive and quite large, and obviously both MRP and here are picking the BOM from the sales order directly. But in Beas, we have an ability, which is very comfortable, that the same work order number can have multiple levels. So the same way that the BOM is built, you could actually have a hierarchy of sub work orders working against the same top work order. And this makes a ton of sense, because if these sub-assemblies are only made to make the final assembly, there is no need to create a different work order for them. All we need to do is just create this work order, and there is a logic to it, because then we would have to start building from the bottom up, and the system will allocate material for each one of these levels. Okay, so exactly as we saw before, each work order acts, each one of these positions of sub work order acts as a separate work order. Okay, but we can look at it together from the top. And that gets me to the next point, which is the way that the work orders are created in Beas. So when a work order is released, what the system does, it looks at the delivery date, either of the sales order, okay? In this case, we had a sales order that was to be delivered by the 25th of April. So the work order has to be ready by the 23rd of April. Why is that? Because there is a parameter in the system indicating that I have a 2-day buffer between the delivery date to the customer and the end of manufacturing. It's a parameter. So if you have to be ready by the 23rd of April, you should have started on the 28th of February to run this work order, because of the time it takes. Remember, there are multiple levels here. Each level, you know, they have the time, they have all these operations. So the lead time brings me to the 28th of February, which is obviously impossible, okay? I cannot start in the past. And I would like the system to help me maximize my capacity, but also let me know when I can come back to my customer and tell him, listen, this will be ready by such and such date. So a couple of things here. When we talk about maximizing, or you know, some words are very nicely said, okay? There are a couple of things I would like to go through, okay? First of all, some of these operations here are external operations, like this one, and we will see how we deal with that. Some of them, like this block assembly, I know exactly which resource I am going to use. It's called OB007, whatever this means, okay? And it's resource work center 1, okay, perfect. But sometimes, just sometimes, I don't know which resource I'm going to use, and I want you to remember this. We have the ability in Beas to create what we call a group of resources that are directly schedulable. In this case, I'll give you an example. This is the cutting. Okay. For me to be able to do this job, I have 3 different cutting machines in the system. Okay. I don't know which one I'm going to use. The 3 of them do exactly the same job. Okay. From my point of view, I don't care. I would like the system to tell me which one is available to do the job the quickest. So all I do when I set up the item, I said, I don't know which machine it's going to. I only know that it's going to go to one of these 3 just by indicating that I put this group here in the routing. So having said all those things, I have my work order, I have my dates, and I would like the system to come back and tell me when I'm able to do this job. That is done using the APS. Okay, the APS shows you all the work orders that you currently have in the system. This is the delivery date, this is the end date. And I can do a couple of things here using APS. This is not an APS, but I'll show you what you can do here. For example, you have all these sales orders and you have the customer. You have the customer here. This is for Aquin, this is for SED Technologies, for microchips. And let's say that this is the order in which they are going to be scheduled. And that's based on the delivery date. So the order with the closest delivery date will get scheduled first, and the one with the latest will get scheduled later. And that's how I get this list. But I can say, listen, even though I need to be ready by the 3rd of May here, I was called by my boss and he told me that I had to do this first. So I can actually, without changing any dates, just move it up to the top here and say, this work order is the most important one, and this is the one I would like to schedule. Okay. So I run a calculation, a couple of seconds to finish, it won't be that long. The system came back, okay, and told me the following. This is the date in which it should have been delivered. This is the actual date in which you will be able to deliver. So this first order that I move here, I'm fine, but the other ones I'm late. I'm 2 months late, if not more, okay? And if we'd like to see why, I can look at this in a graphical manner. And also here, we have the ability to play a little bit with that. For example, what I'm looking at here is by work order. So you get the work order here and you see what are the different stages that you have to go through and when they are taking place. So you get an idea of how the jobs have been scheduled and have been put in one after the other. Okay, but I can actually have multiple views here. I don't have to see it exactly this way, and this is configurable. You can do it yourself. Okay, if one of the more important or more interesting things we can see here is, for example, if I want to see it by sales order. So I have a bunch of sales orders and I need to know how long each one of them will take. So I get this and it tells me, okay, these are the sales orders that I have. These are the work order numbers, the sales order numbers. This is the customer. And these are the dates, and you saw before, in which they will be ready. And by opening this, I can actually see how long each one of the steps is going to take. And I can actually configure this. And this is actually nice because you see this little triangle here? This is the original due date. This is the due date that the customer requested, okay? This is the 3rd of May that we saw before. And I can see here that there is absolutely no way I can make that. And I can have really full visibility to when the operations are going to take place. So I won't go much into this. This is the APS, but you can use this just to let the system let you know when would be the first date in which each one of the operations can take place. And when I finish doing this and go back to my work orders, you'll be able to see that the dates have changed. I no longer have that to start in February. I can only start from today. Okay, so now I get all the information I have here and I have actual dates in which I can run these these operations. Now that I have this, a few other things that will make life easier. Now, you know probably that when you have a work order in Beas, you can print it, okay? When you print a work order, it comes like this. This is just the standard printout, an example. And it has all these barcodes here that will help me to report. Now, even when reporting, remember that we have a lot of drawings, we have a lot of complex steps that I have to take when I'm creating these large machines. So imagine I am one of the operators in the shop floor, and I was tasked of doing the milling here. So as such, I would go into the terminal screen, which is, you don't have to go into sub business one, you just go into a terminal, identify yourself. I'm James Bond. This is my name. We can use a password, we can use an operator number. Log into the work order, scan the barcode that you have here. Okay, and I want to show you, it's telling me you can log into cutting machine number 2, but there's also one little thing here. You see this? I can attach drawings, I can attach instructions, I can attach anything that is pertinent and relevant to the job that I am doing. So by doing this, I attach a PDF system that it's explaining to me how I have to set up the machine, what I need to do, what are the recommendations, how I need to treat this when I am doing this operation, which helps me just get that information on the screen rather than looking for it. Okay, so I'll just log in, and that's it. And then the job goes and it's being done. Okay, one other thing, as you can see here, there are some external operations that are also taking place here. For that, in Beas, we have a special way of treating them. All external production has a special menu here in which you can see all the work orders that are requesting or requiring external operations. And as you can see here, we have 3 different work orders. These are the numbers, 2701, 0607. They are requesting the same type of job. So I can create directly from here either a specific PO or a unified PO for all of them. So I don't have to create a PO work order by work order, but I can actually consolidate multiple work orders into creating a single purchase order. All I have to do is just click on order here. Hopefully. It's asking me for materials to be sent to the supplier, to the external supplier. I am providing all of these materials. If you have to do, for example, what type of operations are done, painting, laminating, all that stuff, so I have to send him something. It doesn't just go by itself. So once I do this, if I go back to any one of these work orders, you will see that the materials that were supplied, you see here there's a provision done, what we call a provision. And a provision is just a stock transfer. It's a stock transfer from our own warehouse to an external warehouse because the stock still belongs to us, but it's very intimately connected to the sales order, to the work order. And when you send it there, then it comes back after a few days, a few hours, as long as it takes. I do a goods receipt. I think this is the one. Yes, this is the external service. So I received one of each, or I could receive partially also, that is also fine. Okay, create a goods receipt, and that's it. The work order is closed, the PO is closed, and within, oops, sorry for all the clicking. Within the work order, you will see that the PO was created. And by the way, we're talking about a standard PO in sub-business one with an item that is a service item. But the cool thing about this is whatever cost is attached to it, which in this case is €2, okay? When I run a costing analysis here of the work order, you will see that these €2 are being added to the cost of the end product. You're going to add to the cost of the end product. So I have full visibility also of the cost of any type of external operation that I might have incurred in my dealings here. At the end of the whole thing, this is the actual cost screen. We can actually make a comparison between what was actually costed and what was actually planned. So in our case, I haven't finished everything, but you can see here what were your planned costs against your actual cost. And if I look at some information I already put here, I am running very bad in the labor, okay? I was supposed to 50 minutes here, I spend an hour and 30 minutes. 25 minutes here, I spend 53 minutes doing this operation. So you can see really visibly how your costs, and these are the actual costs already, are being affected by the actual information that you are feeding the system. The last thing I want to show you here is, I don't know if you're aware, but when you deal with serial items, serialized items, and that is very common when we're doing machinery, that the final product is serialized, but also sub-assemblies might be serialized. Beas can actually reserve serial numbers from the get-go. So when I created this work order, the system already created for me this serial number, which, as you know, in sub-business one, a serial number does not exist until it goes into inventory. In our case, the serial number has been created. It has not yet gone into inventory. However, when I finish doing this and I am doing the receipt from production, the system telling me, listen, this is the serial number that will be used. And the advantage of that is when the system creates serial numbers from the beginning, then you are able to create labels, to run predefined labels and things like that, which makes life a lot easier going forward and not waiting until the end to do so. The other thing, SAP in Beas, you know that normally when you're running a traceability, and you have you're making a serialized item, and you are issuing also a serialized item, the system assumes that you will have a one-to-one relationship, and then you will have to create a work order for one. But in Beas, you don't have to. When you issue materials that are serialized into serialized products, and I'll show you this in another work order. You see here, you will see here all the serial numbers that were created. And if you have a serialized item like this one, you could say that this serial number went to this one, and the other one went to the other one, and the other one went to the other one. So you can actually, within the same work order, create a connection between the serial numbers that you are issuing and the serial numbers that you are making. And that makes life a lot easier, because for that, when you're running a traceability report like this one, you are able to see which serial number was received and which was the serial number that was used. And that is what I wanted to show you regarding industrial machinery.